So actually, you're close. It's Avvo, but it is like the fruit because it comes from Avvo. Well, it's not like the fruit, actually. It's like the Italian word, avocat, meaning lawyer. And that's what Avvo does. We are a marketplace for legal help. So we help people with legal problems, which has become a pretty important thing over the last month. Oh, man, last month. And I am Kevin Goldsmith. I am the Chief Technology Officer at Avvo. And I'm giving this talk on, I think as Rebecca mentioned, we submitted these talks a long time ago, or the proposal. So I wrote the proposal like a zillion years ago, and then I wrote the talk like a week ago. So I changed the title slightly. It's not the perfect team, because the perfect team it's all relative, it's all contextual, it's your perfect team. And why am I talking about this? Well, I had my first direct report, in 1993. I became a dev lead for the first time in 1994. So I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. I've managed teams from like 3 people to 175, and I've done it over a really long time. And the thing was, when I got started, there weren't like a lot of good books. Like Camille's book hasn't even come out yet. There were like no good books back then, and there were no classes you could take. And so my training as a lead and as a manager came from the people I worked for, and they hadn't been trained either. So the quality of that education was pretty uneven, let's say. So what my hope is for today is to teach you some of the mistakes I made, so you don't make my mistakes, you can make your own mistakes. Brand new mistakes are better than old ones. So for those of you that are kind of itching, like there's a bug that somebody's been slacking you about, or there's like an email you want to answer, this next part is the most important part. So if you want to pay attention to only a couple minutes of this talk, this is the thing. This is the most important thing you will hear me say today. And that is, as a lead, as a manager of people, as a leader of people, the most important thing I've learned is that you need to be thoughtful and you need to be deliberate. And hopefully, given that you're attending this conference, this is a blindingly obvious statement, right? Hopefully it is, but I'm going to tell you, I mentor people in many companies. I occasionally do consulting work. I talk to people at conferences like this. I'm part of like CTO meetups and CTO kind of groups, and I can tell you that most of the people I've met at every level of leadership, from dev lead on up to CTO, actually don't do this. They don't think about what they're doing. They don't have good answers for why they make the decisions they make. One of the things I've noticed about all the speakers so far today, and I assume all the speakers that will follow me, is they can talk very clearly about why they do what they do and about how they do it. That means they're being very, very thoughtful about it and very deliberate. And you also means being strategic. So being strategic is part of being a leader at all levels. Now, when you're a dev lead, your job is maybe kind of 90% execution, maybe 10% strategy. When you get to my level, I'm mostly strategy. I'm not mostly execution. I'm mostly strategy for the company, technical strategy and people strategy. So learning this stuff early on, when you're in those first roles and getting better at it, is going to help you as you grow in leadership. But it's also important for making your team successful. So think about this scenario, which probably most of you have dealt with. Like, let's say you go back to work tomorrow, and one of the web devs comes up to you and says, hey, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. This other company offered me 10,000 more euros, dollars, kroner, whatever. And you go, oh, all right, yeah, sorry to hear it. And then your next thought is, okay, well, all right, I just lost a web dev, so I should just hire another web dev, and I can probably use the job description I had before, just reopen the job again, because that's what you do. And that's actually sometimes the right answer, and sometimes it isn't. Because sometimes if you're thinking about where your company's going, your company's maybe moving more and more towards mobile. So maybe you don't need a web dev. Maybe you actually need a mobile dev. But you have to actually be thinking about that and thinking about where the opportunities are for you and for your team. So if you're not being strategic, you'll make some silly mistakes. You'll hire a web dev and then 2 months later be told, okay, you need to do mobile now. And you'll say, I don't have anybody that knows mobile. Like, well, that's not our problem. The other thing too that could happen on a much simpler way. Let's say you've been trying to get better at agile. You've switched to agile and you're struggling a little bit. You lose a developer and you say, okay, well, I'll hire another developer. One of the things you might do in this case is say, when I'm interviewing, I'm going to make sure I hire somebody that's like a true agilist, somebody that can be somebody arguing for good practices on the team. Or you can say, you know what, we're a bunch of goofballs. I probably shouldn't hire somebody that's super, super serious and will just be annoyed by the rest of us posting cat gifs like 24 hours a day in the Slack channel. These are all things to consider, to be thoughtful and deliberate about. It's important as a lead, or any kind of leader, to learn, right? So if you've been doing it for a little while, if you're new leads or you've been doing it for a little while, you're going to get to that point, and I hit that point at a certain time a while ago where you're like, I know this, I got this sussed. I'm awesome. I'm an awesome lead. And then you might be tempted to start making rules. I've got this so good, I'm going to start teaching people my rules on how to be a good lead. And the problem with that is rules assume that you actually know what you're talking about. And for the most part, I can tell you, as I started doing this, yeah, I really didn't know it nearly as much as I thought. So in the path of mastery, if some of you have seen it, you hit that point where you think you know what you're doing, and then as you keep going, you start to learn all the things you don't know. And what's funny was one of the rules I had for interviewing developers was asking them, like, you know, Java developer, C++ developer, whatever, say, like, how good are you at language X? And the higher the score they gave me, the lower I actually estimated their ability to be. Because if you're a super, super experienced C++ developer, I did C++ professionally for 20 years. I would probably put myself around a 6, maybe about a 7, mostly because I knew all the things I didn't really know that well. So if somebody came to me at like 5 years out of school and said, I'm a 10, I'd be like, no, you're probably a 2. So hitting that point where you switched from learning, you make sure you don't stop learning. I am learning a ton today, and I'm looking forward to learning a ton more before the day's out. And that's another reason why I talk to lots of people, lots of companies, to learn a lot of things. So don't forget to adapt. And be agile. So one of the things that happens to people like me, who are big agile software developers, who stop writing code, is we start thinking about how we get to use all those tools to like mess with our teams and come up with new ways of working and innovate. We don't get to innovate in software anymore, so we're going to innovate in organizational design or innovate in process. We're going to A/B test that stuff. We're going to iterate on that stuff. So be agile. You do want to innovate. You shouldn't say, like, I just should do it the way it's been done before. You should do innovative things, but be agile to a point. You know why? Because people aren't software. It's a different role when you're a dev lead, when you actually, part of your job is dealing with people, than it is when you're writing code. And that's a thing I see all the time people miss. They kind of assume, because it works in their head like software, that they can do that with their team. And even if the team's on board, they blow out everybody's ability to handle change. Right? So think about it like this. In your brain is a piece called the entorhinal complex. Hold on, I want to see what Norma, I want to see how Norma spells it. See, what they didn't tell you is one of the things Norma does is she actually does medical conferences, her main gig. So she spelled that absolutely correctly. Awesome. Well done, Norma. All right. I wouldn't have spelled it correctly. And in your entorhinal complex, it stores your maps. It stores your physical maps, like you know probably at this point where the bathrooms are in this theater. But it also stores your mental maps of team organization and all the relationships you have. So if you think about this different context, let's say your company decides that every day they're going to move the bathroom to a completely random place in the building. So every day when you go, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, you got to look for it. That is going to frustrate you amazingly. It's going to frustrate you to no end. And it's probably at a certain point, if they keep doing it, you're going to quit. You're going to be really annoyed. So think about it instead like you're the dev lead and you read a blog post about mob programming. You're like, hey, next week let's do mob programming. And then the week after we're going to do XP. And then the week after that we're going to do, I don't know, we're going to make up our own thing on the spot. People will get exhausted and they'll just be like, I just want to do my job. Please, can we just do something boring? Let's do waterfall. So coming back to building your team, and I kind of, when I proposed the talk, I came up with this sort of foodie metaphor. I'm going to come back to that metaphor a bit. Choosing the right recipe for your team. The first thing when you're either building or growing your team you need to understand is, why does the team exist? Now, oftentimes teams are created for like very good reasons, right? There's a team that's too big, so you split it in half and you split the responsibilities between the two new teams, or there's a component that has been unowned, like the build system or something. It's kind of not working, and somebody says, we should really have a team to own that. We wrote this build system a zillion years ago. Probably a team should own that because it's not working very well. Or, I don't know, you decide, oh, we're going to create a new feature, so we'll create a new team to own the feature. That is very great reasons for creating a team, but that's not a team mission. Why don't I like that as a team mission? The reason is, if your team is responsible for the build system, and that is your raison d'etre, and the best thing you can do for the company is to kill the build system and just use an open source or third-party one. Is that what you're going to do? No, because you got a bug list and a backlog of a zillion things. Like, you've got all these cool things you can do to the build system. So killing it isn't going to be your first thought. But if your team's mission is, we make developers' lives easier at our company. Now you have X number of people. You can make developers' lives easier. Maybe that you're spending all your time with this kind of crusty old build system that probably a manager wrote. I have written build systems for my teams. And the best thing you should do is just scrap it and put all your energy into stuff that's way more higher value for your company. If that's your mission, that's what you'll be empowered to do. So if you want to do that, and you should, that's something if the team exists already and you don't have a great mission like that, that's something you can work on together. If you're being asked, lucky you, to build a brand new team from scratch, that's something that you can talk about with the person, whoever it is who's asking you to build the team. Like, what should our mission be? So that helps a lot, because that sets a great context for when you start thinking about how you're going to populate your team. To achieve your mission, what's needed? What kind of skills and roles and levels of seniority? And it's very much contextually dependent. So before I went to Spotify, I was at Adobe. And one of the projects I led at Adobe was called the Adobe Image Foundation. And the Adobe Image Foundation was our mission was to just make image and video processing super, super, super fast. Full stop. That was our mission. So the way we decided to do that at the beginning was to do multi-core and GPU accelerated library for those things. And part of that was we wanted to write the algorithms in a neutral way, which meant we created domain-specific language that would run on either of these platforms. So that's a pretty complicated, pretty advanced thing. And the other thing is Adobe didn't build big teams, and as far as I know, still doesn't. So I didn't have a ton of headcount for that team. So I had to hire kind of serious, deep-level expertise. And I had to hire compiler experts and graphics processor experts and hardware multi-core acceleration experts, because I only had a few of each to build this really complicated system. The good part was nobody thought we were going to do this in 6 months. So I had a long time to hire these people, and I'll talk about why that constraint was super important. After that, I started doing more consumer software. And at Spotify, we had, or they still have, feature teams. We have the same at Avvo. At feature teams, you don't need like deep levels of skill. And especially when I was at Spotify, we were growing super fast. So if I needed those deep levels of skill, I couldn't hire them very quickly. The areas where I did need it, I couldn't hire it very fast at all. But I could hire mids and junior level developers who could come in, be super productive very quickly. So I went for a completely different skill mix there. And I had mobile, and I had different platforms to work on. So that was super important. I knew what the mission was, and because I knew what the mission was, I knew what the skills I needed and the roles and the levels of seniority. The other thing, if you're thinking about this, which you should be because you're being thoughtful, deliberate, and strategic, is your constraints. So you have your desire, you have your menu or the things you want, your wish list, but then you actually have the constraints because we all work at companies, and companies, amongst other things, give you good constraints. Budget, when I say budget, it means different things in different places. The cool thing at Adobe, or not cool depending on how you look at it, was Adobe budgeted in headcount. Does anybody like budget in headcount? Like you just get a head and you don't, whatever salary you want? That's a pretty cool thing, because what it meant was for any person I was going to hire, I could hire somebody with 15 PhDs who'd been in the industry 30 years, or I could hire somebody fresh out of school for the same headcount. But if I'm doing something super complicated and I only get a couple people, I'm probably going to want that 30-year, 15 PhD person. At Avvo, we budget in dollars. And what that means is Monica, our CFO, will tell me, like, Kevin, this quarter you can grow your headcount budget by 400 grand. And I'll say, okay, well that means I can hire 4 $100,000 people, or I can hire 2 $200,000 people. I could try and hire 1 $400,000 person, but I don't think Monica would let me. And the other thing to think about is the time. As I said, so with AIF, it was a timeline in years. It was a very complicated project. Nobody thought we were going to deliver super fast. But for other projects I've worked on, like Adobe Revel, we were 6 months from prototype to ship. So I needed to onboard people super fast. So that made a big difference in the kind of people I was looking for. Generalists, more junior folks, there's plenty of them in the world. And they're also very easy to steal because they don't get paid very much, so it's not hard to pay them a little bit more. So you can get them much faster. If you're looking for the world's expert in X, strap in, you're going to be there for a long time working on that. And you got to think, too, of the existing people on the team if the team has existing people. And again, like, what are the things about the team that you want to improve and the things that you want to diminish? Because everybody you add on the team, you can create a whole brand new team. Every person you add changes the team. And you can choose how you change it. You think about, if you're being thoughtful and deliberate about the team, what works well in the team, what is not working well in the team, you can hire people that accentuate the positive and diminish the negative. Because you could say, well, I've been working on the same team. I'm a dev lead of a team. We've been working together for 10 years. The 5 of us have been together for 10 years. We are super tight as a group. We can bring on another person. They will adapt to us. We'll never adapt to them because we know what we're doing. No, it's not going to happen. You will absolutely adapt to them because they'll come in and they'll go, what are you doing? This is insane. I can't believe you people write software like this. Have you ever heard of, I don't know, React? Or whatever JavaScript framework we're using today. So it's important to think about that. It's an opportunity. Every person you're adding to the team, or if you do lose somebody, every person you're replacing changes the team. And so thinking about that and being very deliberate about what you're looking for is super important. Now, I can't talk about hiring and building teams without talking about diversity. It has come up many times today for a very good reason. We suck at it. As an industry, we are horrible at it, and I've been in this industry for longer than most of you, and we've always sucked at it. And you should absolutely consider this. But I'm going to talk about a little bit of a different kind of diversity than we normally talk about, just to put some other ideas in your head. So the diversity we tend to talk about, I call the human diversity, right? Race, assigned gender, all those kinds of things, super important. We're working on that stuff super hard at Avvo. We talk about that stuff all the time. I want to talk about a couple other areas of diversity that are not independent of these. Well, actually, I'm sorry. They are absolutely independent of these that you should also be thinking about, and you probably don't hear about nearly as much. And that's about personality and experience level. Now, I like personality tests. A lot of people hate them because they say you can't define my soul with 4 letters, and they're absolutely right. But if I'm looking at a team, not an individual, I'm trying to understand how the team works together, this kind of stuff is actually pretty useful. And oftentimes you're going to hear about this. You hear about it usually from HR, not from tech. We don't talk about it in tech. HR people are actually pretty clued into this stuff, because this kind of diversity is super important also in bringing effective teams together. So these are just several. I think almost all of these have free online versions you can try, as well as like the paid ones. I've used them all: DISC, SDI, Myers-Briggs. At Avvo, we use 5 Dynamics. These are super great ways to do this. And if you think about it, ignoring any one of these, and that's why I listed a bunch. I'm not saying any one of them works better than any other. They're all basically the same to me. But what they help you do is understand your team's approach to problem solving. So if you think about people you work with or people you've managed, you got the person over here that's basically saying, why are we still talking about this? We could be coding already. Like, I am so tired of talking, I just want to be typing now. And then you have somebody else who says, I don't think we really understand the problem. I'd like to spend like a week just really digging into all the innards of this problem so I really totally understand it, and then I can formulate an answer for you. And then you might have the other person that says, this seems to be the solution to the problem, but maybe we could think of like 10 or 15 other solutions, and then we can choose between them. All these are totally valid ways of solving a problem, but if you have a team made up of only one of these types of personalities, which to be honest, as leads, we probably do because we're one of those personalities, and we look for people that are kind of like us when we're hiring. If you have a team that's made up of only one of those kinds of things, you're either going to be coding all the time, which is a lot of people are going to be super happy, and you're going to be doing the wrong things, or you're going to be solving the right problem, but you're going to be solving them over like 15 years, and it's way too late by the time you get to the solution. Or you're going to come up with 3,000 answers to the problem and never actually solve it. You want that healthy tension. You want those different approaches mixed in your team. You want people, along with kind of a healthy respect for each other, to actually have different ways of working so they can put a little bit of pressure on each other. Maybe we've got this good enough we can start coding now. Like, let's work on that together. Another thing that I think I want to talk about, or I know I want to talk about because I made a slide about it, is experience diversity. And I'm just differentiating experience from age. And there's actually a primary reason I'm doing that. One of the things that we've been doing at Avvo to increase our human diversity, that DNA diversity, is by working a lot with like Ada. And there's an apprentice program, a coding apprentice program in Washington State that we're using in some of the coding schools. The cool thing about this, and the people I've met who are attending these things, these are second or sometimes third career people, which means that they already have like a ton of life experience and a ton of professional experience completely outside our industry. And they're just kind of junior coders, but way more experienced in a lot of other ways. So if I have these senior coders, and one of the best ways to grow your senior coders is to have them mentor the junior coders. And the junior coders know way more than the senior coders about like everything that isn't coding. Then you actually have a really nice, very, very healthy kind of mentoring culture within your team because they can mentor each other. It also, as somebody that works for a company that makes consumer software, it also tends to represent your consumers way better as well. And of course, bringing in more junior devs brings in the next generation of technical leaders. Now, one way to understand kind of where you're at in the diversity of your team is spider maps. I really like spider maps for this as a way of visualizing it. You may or may not have seen them. This is what they look like. This is one person. This is a made-up person. We don't have a Phil at Avvo, which is pretty good because he doesn't seem very well-rounded. But Phil here, I picked these axes. You can pick whatever you want. This is disk plus front-end skill, back-end skill, and just general experience. That's what I picked. When you're thinking about your team, again, being thoughtful and deliberate, and maybe deciding with your team what are the areas that we care about and that we want represented, and then people can sort of self-select or do the tests or whatever to figure out where they land on this map, this actually, as you add in the whole team, you get a much better picture of where we are and where we need to be. Because a huge part of that strategy is understanding, again, where the team is and where you want to go. And this is a good way of seeing, like, this is where we're short. And if you lose somebody and you pull out one of these things, then you also know, like, these are the things we should be looking for. These are the characteristics of the people we should be looking to hire. It becomes more obvious, too, when you color it in. You can sort of see how much area you're covering on the things you care about. So this is a fun exercise to do. It's a great team building exercise, coming up with the things that you as a team want to agree on, building your team tenets, and then actually like doing the work to think about it and map it. Okay. So actually, I'm way ahead of my schedule. I probably should have said like 15 other things that I forgot. So sorry about that. I want to leave you with a parting thought, and then I'll buy some time back into the calendar or schedule today. The cool thing about this lead role, and also the scary thing about this lead role, or this manager role, or this senior leadership role, we have a massive direct impact on the lives of the people that we work with. Now, anybody in a company, in a team, has impact on those around them. We have way outsized impact. If you think about the bosses you've had that are awesome, if you think about the bosses you've had that made you miserable, the difference between coming to work every day for a boss that like gave you great feedback, gave you great mentorship, was helping you grow in your career, even as a lead, right? Part-time coder, or even most-time coder. How much more fun it was to be in that team and be in that job versus somebody that comes in, never talks to you, they're just working on their own code, they don't really care about the people at all. They're just kind of widgets that produce code that they decide is A-okay or not. How much that sucks to work for somebody like that, and I have worked for people like that. I hope I haven't been that way to people, but I can't promise that. That is an awesome and wonderful responsibility because you will remember forever. I remember every good boss I had, and I remember every bad boss too. I don't remember everybody on every team, I have to admit. I've worked on a lot of teams. I don't remember everybody on every team, but I remember every leader that I've worked for. And that's, wow. I hope the people that have worked for me will remember me long after they no longer do. So be mindful of the humans. This echoes a little bit of what a couple of the speakers have spoken about today. Aaron, Camille, certainly. But I want to restate it because it's super important. If you're a dev lead, you are at least a part-time coder. And you become a dev lead usually because you're a pretty good coder. That's kind of how I did it. That's how a lot of people do it, just a lot of companies. That's what they're looking for. And so it's really attractive to really focus on that code and ignore the people. But it's a different job. As Aaron said, this is a different job. You have to care about the people. And if you do, you'll make their lives better, and it'll make yours better as well. So thank you.